Hey fellas, I'm Collin and you're watching Magic Strawberry. When God of War was first released in 2005, it quickly garnered a reputation for being one of the most violent games in the market. And the series as a whole became famous for its gore, addictive action, high spectacle, and most notably its protagonist, Kratos. The action-skinned Spartan became a beloved mascot of the PlayStation brand, but also received criticism for being a one-note character whose only function was destruction. Santa Monica sought to rectify these criticisms with a much more emotionally visceral game this time around. And when it released this past spring, it seemed to do just that. God of War 2018 was heralded as an absolute achievement for the industry, a new standard to strive for. Gone was the mindless violence in favor of a more personal story that is, at its heart, a game about a father and a son. I never got the chance to cover this game since time ran short last semester, but I'm very glad to announce that I will be indeed taking a look at it this episode. This is God of War. Since Kratos single-handedly drove Greece into a literal state of chaos in the events of God of War 3, he ventured into the Norse realm of Scandinavia, where he would meet a second wife and have a son. His wife, Faye, would soon pass, however, with her dying wish being that Kratos and his son, Atreus, spread her ashes on top of the highest peak in all the realms. The journey to the highest peak on its surface appears to be a simple premise, but the journey itself would prove anything but, since the Norse gods don't take too kindly with Kratos residing within their realm. Obstacle after obstacle arises on the way, with the odds continually being stacked against them, but none of it would prove as tasking as Kratos figuring out how to raise his son in his wife's absence. Initially, the most striking thing about the new God of War is that the entire game is framed in one continuous shot that never breaks. Apparently when gaming director Cory Barlog worked on the Tomb Raider reboot, it was then when he first proposed this idea. Predictably, they told him it was an insane idea, but Barlog wouldn't be deterred this time. The one-shot camera made this perhaps the most intimate gaming experience I've ever had, and it helped flesh out the father-son dynamic in an incredibly nuanced way. We spend nearly every second with these two through all the anguish, teaching moments, and bonding experiences. It is the relationship between these two that serves as the heart and soul of this story, and never once does this narrative break its focus in that respect. You'll grow so close to Atreus, boy, that it'll almost make you feel like you have a son of your own, which I think is the highest compliment I can pay to a father-son dynamic this believable. The relationship between Kratos and Atreus carries itself into combat in clever fashion, as Atreus stands to decide to launch arrows at your command, while Kratos tears into every Draugr in sight with his trusty Leviathan axe, which I must say has already become one of my favorite weapons in video game history, and the fact that it functions like Thor's hammer Mjolnir is an added bonus. Throwing and calling back the axe is the most fun I've ever had with the weapon mechanic. It can obviously be used for combat in most puzzles. The combat just feels good, and is almost entirely different from the hack and slash mechanics from the previous games. Also, the boss fights are simply tremendous, and in a game that prioritizes intimacy and personal storylines above all else, it thankfully doesn't sacrifice any of the spectacle in these boss fights that we've come to expect from this franchise. All of this goes without saying that Rage Mode is back in full force, as Kratos drops his weapons and puts his god-level strength on full display with his bare fist. The combat this time around is also noticeably more difficult, and even when dying many times while making this perilous journey to the highest peak in all the realms, I loved every second of it. This difficulty also gives you incentive to explore the semi-open world, as you look for both in Rage Mode upgrades, currency, and even armor, since God of War has adopted light RPG elements that allows you to choose different pieces of gear to wear. The world in which this game takes place is a Norse dream come true. After becoming dissatisfied with the initial developments of the game's setting, Cory Barlog had his team travel to Norway to scope out the mountainous terrain and gorgeous fjords, and then translate that aesthetic into the game. I can say it was well worth the trip since the world is breathtaking and a technical marvel, and all that goes on, it's rare that something as little as a frame rate drop occurs. I was thoroughly captivated by all 30 hours of this mesmerizing experience. As a longtime fan of this series, it was surreal to see the emotional growth this franchise has made, and it sort of made me feel that these games that I've enjoyed since I was 10 years old were maturing along with me. God of War has never been this immersive or felt this visceral. It is rightly regarded as a masterpiece, and I simply cannot give it justice without gifting it my first 10 out of 10. There are other minute flaws that might keep it from being objectively perfect, but then again, what is? God of War is something that must be experienced firsthand, and I implore you all to play it if you haven't already. Thanks for watching Magic Strawberry. Feel free to like this video, subscribe to our channel, follow us on Twitter @ZTVGoofingOff, and go pick up a copy of God of War. See ya!